I'm 42 years old, married for 14 years, one kid, a mortgage, a life I thought was boring in the safest, best way. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said my biggest problem was being tired all the time. Work, dinners, helping with homework, falling asleep on the couch. Normal stuff. I love my wife. I love my son. I trusted both of them with my whole heart, without thinking twice. My wife, Elle, was always the organized one. PTA meetings, school emails, teacher conferences. She cared deeply about our son's education. I admired that. I thought it made her a good mother. A better one than me, honestly. Our son struggled a bit in school. Nothing dramatic, just average grades, trouble focusing. We chalked it up to age, distractions, maybe a bad teacher fit. When a new principal took over at his school, Elle suddenly seemed hopeful, like someone had handed her a solution. I didn't know that was the beginning of the end. I didn't know that the woman sleeping next to me was already starting to detach, that she was capable of justifying something so ugly while looking me in the eye every night and asking how my day was. I'm writing this because my life feels like it's collapsing in slow motion, and I don't know how to carry this alone anymore. The principal's name was Mark, mid-50s, charismatic, the kind of guy who remembered names and made long eye contact when he talked. Elle came home from the first meeting, glowing. "He really cares about the kids," she said. "He actually listens." That became a pattern. Mark said this. Mark suggested that. Mark thought our son had so much potential. Elle started emailing him directly instead of the teacher. Then texting. She said it was easier. I noticed how often his name came up, how she smiled when her phone buzzed. I told myself I was being paranoid. She's allowed to care. She's allowed to talk to people. Still, little things stacked up. She started dressing nicer for school meetings, wearing perfume she hadn't touched in years, staying late after pickup because Mark wanted to discuss something. I joked about it once. "Careful, I might get jealous." She laughed, too quickly. "Don't be ridiculous." I trusted her. I trusted the system. I trusted that a school principal wouldn't cross lines. I trusted my marriage. That trust feels embarrassing now. The red flags were there. I see them so clearly now, it hurts. She guarded her phone like it was classified information. Screen always face down. Password changed. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd lock it instantly and ask me something random, like she needed an alibi. She started criticizing me more. Little jabs. "You're not as involved as other dads. You don't really understand what he needs." I internalized it. I tried harder, but it never seemed enough. Meanwhile, our son's grades improved. Noticeably. Elle treated that like proof that everything she was doing was justified. "See, this is working." Working how? I didn't ask. I didn't want to look insecure. She also became emotionally distant. Less affection, less sex. When I brought it up, she said she was stressed, that I should be more supportive. So I was. I cooked more. I backed off. I swallowed the weird feeling in my gut because marriage is about compromise, right? I wish I'd listened to that feeling. It was screaming at me and I kept telling it to shut up. The doubt didn't come crashing in all at once. It crept. One night, Elle fell asleep on the couch. Her phone buzzed. I didn't mean to look. I swear I didn't, but the name Mark lit up the screen. The message preview said, "I miss our talks. Today was hard without you." I stood there, frozen, like my body had forgotten how to breathe. I didn't open the message. I put the phone back exactly where it was. I sat there all night replaying it, trying to rationalize. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I misunderstood. The next morning, I asked casually, "You and Mark talk a lot, huh?" She stiffened. "Why?" "No reason." "Well, don't make it weird," she snapped. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. Not because of what she said, but how defensive she was, like I'd stepped on a landmine. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. My mind filled in blanks I didn't want filled. The real turning point came 2 weeks later. I was folding laundry when I found a note in her jacket pocket. Not even hidden, just folded once. It wasn't graphic. That somehow made it worse. I know this is complicated, but being with you makes me feel alive again. My hand shook so badly I dropped it. There was no plausible explanation left. No mental gymnastics that could save this. When she came home, I handed her the note. "What is this?" I asked. She went pale, sat down slowly, didn't deny it. "I didn't plan for this," she said. That sentence still echoes in my head, as if planning is the only moral line that matters. I asked if she slept with him. She hesitated. That hesitation was the answer. "Yes," she finally said. "But it wasn't just sex?" I laughed. A broken, hysterical sound I didn't recognize as my own. She told me everything in pieces, how it started as talking, how he understood her, how he cared about our son's future, how one late meeting turned into another. "And the grades?" I asked. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "He helps. He advocates. Our son needs that." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "So you fucked him for better grades?" "That's not fair," she said. "I did it for our family." I couldn't process the audacity, the logic, the way she wrapped betrayal in motherhood. She cried, said she felt trapped, said she still loved me. I don't remember what I said. I remember the room spinning. I remember thinking my life had split into a before and an after, and I'd never get the before back. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. That almost feels worse. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out and left a shell behind. I kept asking the same questions on a loop. How long? Where? Did our son ever see anything? She answered, sometimes impatiently, like I was dragging it out unnecessarily. I went to the bathroom and threw up. Twice. When I came back, she was sitting there crying softly, like we were both victims of some unfortunate accident. I slept in the car that night. Couldn't stand being in the house. Every object felt contaminated. The next day at work, I stared at my screen for 8 hours and did nothing. I didn't tell anyone. I was too ashamed. Like her betrayal reflected something broken in me. I kept thinking about my son, about his school, about how the place I trusted to educate him became the setting for my marriage's destruction. I didn't feel anger yet, just shock, a numb, buzzing disbelief that this was actually my life. The anger came later. When I asked her to cut contact with him, she hesitated again. "It's complicated," she said. "He's still the principal." I lost it then. I screamed. I asked her how she could prioritize him over our marriage, over my sanity. She said I was being selfish, that I didn't understand the pressure she was under, that our son's success mattered more than my ego. That word, ego, broke something in me. I demanded she report it, to the school board, to someone. She refused, said it would ruin him, ruin our son's stability. So his career mattered. Our son's grades mattered. But I didn't. We argued for hours, circling the same points until we were both exhausted and hateful. She asked for time, space, understanding. I gave her none of that. I moved into the guest room and stopped speaking unless it was about our son. The house became a battlefield of silence. I started questioning everything about myself. Was I inattentive? Unattractive? A bad father? I replayed every moment I'd chosen work or rest over being present. I hated her. I missed her. Sometimes in the same minute. I felt guilty for wanting to blow up her life, for imagining revenge, for wishing Mark would suffer the way I was. I felt emasculated, replaced, like I'd lost to a man with authority and influence and access to my child. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake imagining them together, my mind filling in details I never asked for. I stopped eating, lost weight. Friends noticed, but I brushed it off. The worst part was how alone I felt, like I was screaming inside a soundproof room. Our son noticed. Kids always do. He asked why mom and dad didn't sit together anymore, why I seemed sad. I lied, over and over, because what was I supposed to say? His grades stayed good. That felt like a cruel joke. I started avoiding school events. I couldn't face the building. The thought of seeing Mark made my hands shake. Elle accused me of abandoning my role as a parent. I accused her of destroying the foundation of our family. We were both right, and both powerless. Eventually, the secret started leaking out of me, whether I wanted it to or not. You can only carry something this heavy alone for so long before it starts cracking your ribs from the inside. I told my brother first. We were sitting in his garage, pretending to fix something that didn't need fixing. I stared at the floor and just said it. No build-up, no drama. When I finished, there was this long silence. Then he said, "I want to hurt him for you." And I broke down harder than I had since the night I found the note. Then I told one close friend. Then another. Every time I said it out loud, it felt more real and more humiliating. Like I was confessing a personal failure instead of something done to me. Elle hated that I told anyone. She said I was airing private business. She said it could affect our son if people talked. She said it made her look bad. That's when it hit me. She wasn't ashamed of what she did. She was ashamed of being seen. Family gatherings became torture, smiling through clenched teeth while people asked how married life was going. I became quieter, more withdrawn. People noticed, but no one pressed. Maybe they didn't want to know. Maybe I didn't either. The isolation was crushing. I felt like I was living a double life. The functional dad on the outside, the hollowed-out wreck underneath. I started to understand how people disappear emotionally long before they ever physically leave. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I'd be standing in line at the store and suddenly feel like I couldn't breathe. My chest would tighten, my hands would go numb, and my heart would slam against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The first time it happened, I thought I was having a heart attack. The doctor said it was anxiety, panic attacks. He asked about stress at home. I laughed, which immediately turned into crying. Sleep became fragmented. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, my brain replaying conversations that already happened, or inventing new ones where I said everything I never actually said. I'd lie there listening to Elle breathe in the next room, wondering how someone could sleep so peacefully after detonating another person's life. Therapy was humiliating at first. Sitting across from someone while admitting I felt disposable, replaceable, like my value as a husband and a man had been quietly negotiated away without my consent. Some days I was furious. Other days I felt nothing at all, which scared me more. I stopped enjoying things. Food tasted flat. Music annoyed me. Even time with my son felt bittersweet, because it reminded me what I was holding together with duct tape and denial. I had intrusive thoughts about just leaving. Not suicide, just erasing myself from this version of my life, driving until the road ended, becoming someone with no history, no betrayal attached to their name. The only thing anchoring me was my son's voice when he asked if I'd be home for dinner. We tried couples counseling because it felt like what you're supposed to do, like checking a box so you can tell yourself you made an effort. In therapy, Elle reframed everything. She talked about feeling unseen, unsupported, overwhelmed by motherhood. She used words like emotional neglect and coping mechanisms. I sat there listening to my marriage get clinically dismantled while the affair itself felt almost secondary in her version of events. When I talked, I focused on the betrayal, the lies, the fact that she used our son as a justification. The therapist nodded sympathetically, but kept redirecting us to shared responsibility. That phrase made me want to scream. Elle apologized, but it always came with conditions. I'm sorry you're hurt. I'm sorry it went this far. Never I was wrong. Never I chose to betray you. Mark transferred schools quietly. No scandal. No accountability. He vanished from our daily lives like a ghost who got away clean. That infuriated me more than I expected. He got a reset. I got insomnia and panic attacks. Counseling ended not with closure, but exhaustion. We ran out of things to say that didn't reopen the wound. On paper, we're still married. In reality, we're co-managers of a household that lost its soul. We communicate efficiently. Schedules, bills, school logistics. There's no warmth, no spontaneity. Physical touch feels transactional at best, invasive at worst. I don't check her phone anymore, not because I trust her, but because I don't want to know. That feels like an important distinction. Some days are deceptively normal. We laugh at a TV show. We function. Those days confuse me the most. They make me question whether I'm overreacting, whether I should just move on. Then something small will trigger me. A school email, a mention of the principal's office, a phrase she used to use, and I'm right back in that moment, holding the note with shaking hands. I don't know if staying is strength, cowardice, or habit. Divorce feels like another explosion my son doesn't deserve. Staying feels like slow self-erasure. I exist in the space between those two fears, unable to choose. Before all this, I thought betrayal was a single moment, a line crossed, a clear villain. Now I know it's quieter. It's a series of choices wrapped in justifications. It's someone deciding your pain is acceptable collateral damage for their comfort, their validation, their sense of control. What haunts me most isn't the sex. It's the logic she used to excuse it, the way she weaponized motherhood and turned our son into a moral shield. I've learned that trust doesn't shatter all at once. It erodes. And once it's gone, love alone can't rebuild it. I don't know how this ends. Maybe we separate. Maybe we stay emotionally distant until our son grows up and the house finally exhales. Maybe I wake up one day and realize I've forgiven her. Or maybe I never will. All I know is this. I will never again ignore that quiet voice in my gut. The one that whispers when something is wrong long before proof exists. And I will never confuse stability with safety again. Thanks for reading. I just needed somewhere to put this so it didn't keep living entirely inside me.